Can anybody hear me now? Hello! I might have hit the mic button accidentally there. Can you hear me now? The joys of streaming live. Can anybody hear me now? Hello! I might have Excellent. Okay, yeah, so I had my microphone off, which is always fun when you're trying to stream and people can't hear you. Anyways, yeah, so let me reiterate what I was saying while I was talking into a mic that wasn't working. I'm going to be doing some Atari games today, and yeah, I think the last stream I did, or one of the last few streams, it's been a while since I did a stream. I think I did a Sega game. Then I do Tasmania. So, you know, I did a few Nintendo, Sega stuff, and I thought, hey, I haven't done a good Atari stream in a while. And, you know me, I love Atari. I wish I could do some Intellivision streaming, because, you know, Intellivision is, you know, my favorite, and I don't have a lot of games on there. But, you know, Grim Monolith is asking, Brian, can I ask, are you playing illegally downloaded ROMs? Possibly. However, from what I understand, ROMs are only illegal if you don't own the game. And I own all these games. Are these Atari games you own? Yes, I do own them. Unfortunately, I don't have a capture card, which is something I know that I've gone on and off about talking, especially with Rex Warden there, saying, you know, you should just buy a capture card. But it's a little more complicated than that. It's just my setup. Right now, my computer, everything is upstairs, and my man cave is downstairs, and that's where all my game systems are, and that's where my, you know, my full setup is. So right now, it's just easier for me to stream this way. But yeah, I typically, you know, with Atari, I pretty much own all these games. It's not a big deal. I have like 4 capture devices. Well, that's pretty cool. I guess some things work better than others. I think Grim Monolith was like ready to go to the emulator police there. The cheapest was $15. That's pretty cheap, yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily a price thing. It's just my setup. It's just the way things are right now. I just, all my systems, all my games, everything is downstairs in the man cave. And my computer, the only computer I have to stream on, is upstairs. So it's kind of like, you know, the office computer. So that's where I do all my streaming. This is why I have kind of an ugly background behind me. I don't have my man cave there. I don't have all my great stuff. The Atari creep is like, dude, you ain't got to explain any shit to nobody. You just do what you do. Yeah, well, you know, I use emulators. And I don't think I'm the only person on YouTube or in the world that uses emulators. So, you know, if the Atari police want to come after me for using an emulator, go. What am I going to do about it? So I decided I'm going to play Hero today because, well, I'm going to start with Hero because I like Hero, and I used to play Hero a lot on the Commodore 64 back in the day, and eventually ended up getting my copy on the Atari. This game is not cheap. If you want to pick it up for the Atari, you're probably going to pay around the $50 range, at least for me in Canada anyways. Maybe in America it might be slightly different, maybe a little bit lower, you know, 35 to 40, but 35 to 40 in American money is about $50 Canadian. Plus you're probably going to buy it on eBay, which means you're going to have to pay shipping and handling and all other crap. So, yeah, you'll pretty much pay that kind of money regardless. But yeah, let's see how I do. Now, I have to admit, the thing is, I would rather be playing this on my Atari than on an emulator, because then I'd be able to use something like this rather than something like this, because I don't have a proper converter to you know, change over my Atari joystick to the PC, and I also don't have one of those fancy schmancy Atari joystick USB plugins, which I don't know if it's any good or not because I haven't really seen any reviews on them, whether the thing's actually any good or not. because I'm sure, you know, it's just a knockoff version of an Atari joystick with a USB port. Who knows if it's even good, especially as good as the original Atari joystick. But I have heard that there is some kind of some type of conversion thing. You can actually plug in an actual Atari joystick into a PC. Atari sticks are objectively inferior to Genesis controllers. Yes, true. In some cases. But in certain games, like Hero, where I think that this game was designed to be used with an Atari joystick, when you're using a Genesis or a gamepad, you don't have, I don't know, it's just the stiffness of the controller. You don't have that. The gamepad's too weak, too easy to accidentally run into things and not be able to control this guy very well. Looks like we got Jim's Retro Zone into the chat right there. How's it going, Jim? Glad you can make it. I know Jim's been doing a few television games recently. He just picked up a good stack from the No Swear Gamer. Awesome dude. Ah, I just fell into the hole. That really sucked. What's Rex saying here? If I had a Master System controller back in the early 80s, I would never have used the sticks. Sticks result in fatigue. Yeah, well, some sticks, yeah. I have tried the Master System controller on my actual Atari as well. You know, I just got really used to using an actual Atari joystick. I don't have any problems with it. In fact, I played most of my Commodore 64 games with an actual Atari joystick, so I just got used to it. It's the same thing with the you know, the Intellivision. I got used to the actual Intellivision controller, which a lot of people just really hate on. They don't like them very much. But for me, you know, that was my first video game controller. I was pretty much, you know, I don't know, maybe 6 years old, probably, when we got our Intellivision. So that would have been the first video game controller ever to go into my hand, and I've never had a problem with it. So, but I know other people have a different opinion on that, and some people won't use anything unless it's a gamepad, and that's fine. I've heard some people say, like, the Xbox has the best gamepad out there. I don't know if that's true or not. How about Kaboom with the controller? No, you can't play Kaboom with the controller. You want to play Kaboom, you got to play with the paddle, not this thing. Even though the Flashback, like the Flashback 8 and all that, you can use a controller. Playing Kaboom with a controller is not a good idea. It's a terrible idea, actually. It's actually one of the problems with the games like, some of the problems with the games like Lost Luggage, or any other similar style games like Gremlins, where you actually have to, like, use a regular style Atari joystick. And the game, it plays very much like Kaboom. I think the stick is a lot more precise for a lot of these old style. Exactly. The Atari creep knows what I'm talking about. Playing this game with an original Atari joystick is so much better than using these gamepads. You have far better control. I mean, the gamepads, don't get me wrong, they are more comfortable. When you're playing for long periods of time, the gamepads are amazing. Like the Sega Genesis gamepad, even the Nintendo, the original NES gamepad, is a little bit more comfortable if you're going to be playing games for hours and hours and hours than if you're going to be using the traditional joystick, which, you know, they did make the joysticks kind of for the Nintendo as well, but I don't know how anybody can play Super Mario Brothers with a joystick. I really don't. Crud. Hate getting into these levels with these, whatever these glowing things are. Oh crap, I'm going the wrong way. No! I just fell into the lava. Or water. Whatever that is that kills him. Everything in this level. Ah, jeez. The only proper ball I have is ladies, early on is AV connector. Jim's Retro Zone. I just shared this on my Facebook page. Thanks, man. I played with Mario with a stick in the arcade. Actually, I did try that one. The arcade, I remember one of the later arcades that I went to had Super Mario Brothers in arcade. And I was horrible at it. Even though I was really good on my original Nintendo with a gamepad. And when I tried Super Mario Brothers using the actual arcade, you know, arcade cabinet with the arcade stick and the buttons and all that, I couldn't play it. I couldn't play it with a darn. I don't know, maybe I just got used to using the gamepad or something. It's kind of like when you try and use the NES Advantage, if anybody knows anything about that thing. Which is kind of like an arcade stick for the Nintendo. I can see that thing being really good for the classic arcade style games on the Nintendo, like Donkey Kong, you know, the Donkey Kong Classics and Popeye, and pretty much all those black labeled NES games. I can see the NES Advantage working well. But for things like Super Mario Brothers, like that game was designed to be played using that gamepad, so trying to use a controller, a little bit difficult. Yeah, I mean, even the Atari keeps saying that, and it's true. I mean, and it's much harder too. It's like you're playing on the difficult. You know, when you complete Super Mario Brothers the first time, and then you play on the second quest. The arcade one's kind of like that, where there's more holes to fall into, and it's a little bit tougher. Plus, you're using the arcade stick and not a gamepad, which is, you know, yeah, Mr. Toon, yeah, saying Pac-Man for sure. Totally different experience. But this is a good example of a game where the controller makes a big difference. In fact, I was even playing this a lot when I used to work downtown. I had to take the train home every day, and I had Activision Classics downloaded on my phone. So you gotta imagine on something like a cell phone, and it has the touch screens, and I was playing Hero on that a lot on my way home, but I could only get so far because the response of the phone controls, like, it's not like a regular touchpad, right? It's touch screen, and I think I'd only be able to get like maximum to level 10. I think this is the farthest I've ever gotten on the phone, because like even just the jumping and all that. I'd like to see Brian play Todd Fry's Pac-Man next. Todd Fry's Pac-Man. No touchscreen, please. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't the best way to go, but when you're on a train, there's not a lot you can do, right? And if this is before the what do you call it? The Flashback Portable came out. I remember all the time kind of wishing that something like the Flashback Portable even existed, and I never thought it would, so I can imagine my excitement when it actually came out. But then by that time I was not taking the train anymore, so didn't have a lot of opportunity to use my Flashback Portable, and now sadly it's missing. I don't even know where the heck it is. My daughter was playing with it for a long time, and I don't know, it ended up in a car or in a backpack somewhere, or who knows. I have no idea where it is. Thinking I might need to bite the bullet and buy another one, and you know, get that newer one, the one that comes with Pac-Man preloaded on it. It also had my card in there, my SD card with all the games loaded on. Kind of a bummer that I can't find it anymore. I also liked how I could hook it up to the TV if I needed to. Oh, jeez. Not doing too well. I don't know, I thought about, you know, maybe buying one of those USB Atari sticks, but I don't know. I think I should look into it a little bit more to see if it's even worth it. I mean, it might have the same responsiveness as the flashback Atari controllers, which are kind of different. Oh, jeez. Losing a lot here. See, this is where, you know, the controls are important. These areas here, going under these, like, parts here, it really is important. I think I'm doing worse now than I was on my phone. It's under 10, I'd say go for it. Whoa. And then Hero 2. I mean, Hero is a game where controller is a big thing. This is why I kind of wondered about playing this on, like, say, ColecoVision. I don't know. I don't know how this game would work, like, with the Coleco controllers. Let's see here. I think I'm going to get a USB joystick. Let you know how to... Oh, cool. Yeah, it'd be nice to know, Atari Creep there. Let me know how it goes. Let's do the Gorf. Now I have this cartridge. I haven't actually spent any time playing it. I think I used to play this on a different system a long time ago. Let's just see how I do. It's kind of like a Space Invaders style game, right? There's more levels to it. I'm not really that great at Space Invaders games. I used to play Space Armada on my television a lot. See if they go hyper if you kill the last one. Yeah. Now stuff really gets real here. Oh. This is Gorf on the Atari 2600. Well, okay, this guy's difficult. You almost have to, like... The thing about this is you can't shoot multiple bullets. You can only shoot one, and you have to wait until it exits the screen. I just gotta get out of the way. Some, like, weird TIE fighter looking thing. I always love how these space games have a lot of ships in it that look like they're right out of Star Wars. Almost as if they were just really trying to, like, work off the Star Wars hype back in the day. You know, Star Wars was huge back in late 70s, early 80s. And not all of them would have had any rights to actually, you know, use Star Wars other than the Parker Brothers games that came out. But there were so many other games that came out that would have been much better Star Wars games than the ones that actually got released, sadly. Even in television had a few games that were great. Star Raiders is one that comes to mind. That one is very much like a Star Wars type of game. Oh, how do I kill this thing? Keep shooting it. Yeah, so you can see it had a lot more levels or you know, sections to it than just Space Invaders. But it does start off with the basic Space Invaders level. I like how the explosions happen too. You know, the whole screen just like goes crazy and lights up. Again, it kind of makes me wonder why games like this, at least I don't think it was, why they don't use the paddle controller. I don't think this one uses the paddle controller in the real Atari. Oh, I hit the big guy in the beginning there. Now all the little guys are going crazy. Oh. It just reappears. Whoa. You know, I think the first time I ever played this game was actually on the VIC-20. Commodore VIC-20. I think my friend had it. You know, when I was a little kid. I had the Commodore 64, she had the VIC-20. I'm pretty sure she had Gorf, and that's probably my first experience with this game. And I actually think I have it too, but my my VIC-20 crapped out on me, so I can't actually try it any, you know. Star Strike, yeah. Jim's Retro Zone saying that. Star Strike, that's the one that's like a Star Wars game. It's actually the kind of the scene where Luke Skywalker has to like fly through the Death Star and shoot at the whatever to blow it up. One tiny dot versus all that. Yeah, that's true. It's one tiny dot. Let's see, what else do we got going on here? Might be the one I'm thinking about. Yeah, that's the one probably. Star Strike. They actually made a version of it on the Atari as well, the M Network. Because, you know, M Network is Mattel, and was Mattel Electronics that made a lot of the games that were on the Intellivision. They also ported them over to the Atari. So games like Astro Blast, like this one here, which is actually Astro Smash. The thing is, though, with the Astro Blast, you can actually use the paddle controller, which is neat. And you can use the joystick if you choose not to. They got their pole position. Mr. Toon loves his pole position. Spider Fighter. Let's see here. Nope. Well, that comes for 4P, so let's try it. I don't think I'm any good at this one. Another one of those shoot 'em up games. As you can guess, Atari had a lot of space shooters. I called Pac-Man a long time ago. I think I only have the one Pac-Man though. It might be the original Pac-Man. I don't know if that's the one you were talking about there, Jim. don't think I have any of the homebrew ones. Or, I don't know, which Pac-Man were you talking about? Oh, jeez. See, I like how this one you can shoot multiple times versus Gorf, where it was just like one bullet at a time, and you had to wait, and if it made contact or not. And then if you shot another bullet, it canceled out your previous bullet, which really sucked. So you're like waiting for it to make contact, and then you hit the button. Yes, the original by Todd Fry. Okay, yeah, I can play that too. Nothing wrong with playing a little original Atari Pac-Man. This game's crazy. There's just so much coming at you. You almost have to like keep moving. It's like those things just keep turning into eggs. And they turn into more spiders. It's also neat the way the bullets kind of like scatter like that. Like it's one on one side, one on the other kind of idea. I thought you knew that. I probably did. It's hard to remember with all the different versions of Pac-Man that came out on the Atari, which one's the original one and which one's the homebrew ones. And cause I know there's like an Atari 4K, and then there's another, Pac-Man 4K, and there's another. I think there's like 2 other Pac-Man games on the Atari from different developers. Whoa. Jeez. Atari 2600 Pac-Man is the best version. Changed my mind. Oh, maybe we'll change our mind when I start playing it. I actually do remember playing it though when I was a kid, and I didn't have a lot of problems with it. Borrowed an Atari from a friend, and a whole bunch of games, and that was my first experience playing Pac-Man on it, and you know, I didn't really have a problem with it, but I can see though how a lot of people might have during those days when they got used to playing it in the arcade, and then when they were promised this Pac-Man game on the Atari. Kind of like what I said in my video when I did the Pac-Man for the Atari 400. You know, a lot of people were expecting something more similar to the arcade, and then when they got home after buying, say, that one for the 2600, and that was the game that popped up, I'm sure there was a little bit of disappointment there when they're like, this doesn't even look like Pac-Man. Or at least the board's not the same, the sounds aren't the same. Even the way he controls is kind of weird. However, people who had the 8-bit computers, they were okay. They bought their Pac-Man and they were perfectly satisfied with what they got. Because it was pretty much dead on to the 2600 version, or the arcade version versus the 2600. It's when you really have to be moving a lot. Doing a little bit better than I thought I would be. Oh. Oh, it's getting difficult now. Ah! Can't hit that thing. There we go. Everything's moving supersonic speed. Can't keep up. Ah. Doomed. People on TV start this stuff when they talk shit about stuff and then people imitate it. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens. Actually, Atari has a lot of hate, obviously, with the Pac-Man game and the E.T. game and a lot of other things where it's like, you know, a lot of people don't even know what the heck they're talking about. Going back to chat about the controllers, this one plays way better with the gamepad. Actually, yeah, I think it does. I wasn't having a hard time there. Where am I going? Pac-Man, back Kong. That's weird. All right, let's do this. We're gonna do it. Is this it? Hold on. I think it's the same thing. Oh yes, that classic sound. Whoa. I like how you can clearly see how the board is duplicated. You can see, like, if you split the middle in half, right down the middle, the one side is mirrored, so the right side is mirrored with the left side, and that's exactly how they programmed games back in the days. That's why that right there, you can see there's two palettes together, right in the middle. And that's how they saved on programming, is they would program one side and just map it and reflect it, essentially. Oh. Yeah, the sound effects, they've definitely changed the sound around, for sure. And that center part. Also, the top and the bottom is where the you can kind of go through. And in real Pac-Man, it's on the right and the left. Or the arcade Pac-Man, anyways. I'm just getting killed everywhere here. Uh-oh. So you can see that also the ghost, like, you know, most of the time you think the ghosts look the same color, but they actually are colored. It's just very faint colors. I'm sure back in those days with the old TVs, when your reception wasn't the greatest, colors weren't the greatest, you probably didn't realize that they were actually different colors. Probably thought they were all the same color ghosts. I don't recall ever hearing the word like and this Pac-Man in the same sentence ever. This is the best Pac-Man port. Well, if you grew up with the Atari 2600, this was your only Pac-Man port. So, I mean, there was a lot of dot gobbling games out there to choose from. My favorite on the Atari 2600 was Mousetrap. I had that one long before I had Pac-Man. Even before I had Miss Pac-Man, which is a much better version of this game. I mean, it's still challenging. It's not like this is an easier, you know, game or anything like that. It's still got its challenge. Yep, we go. Visually, though, a little bit dull. You don't get those floating cherries or anything like that. Yay. Ah. Hey, it's Unconfettinal. Did I say your name right? Uncon? Uncon? Uncon. An arena foot. I had and still do the Tomitronic Pac-Man handheld. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, there's quite a few Pac-Man handhelds out there. There was a Game & Watch version of it, which came out quite early. There was a one that will almost look like a calculator, even though the game played more like Munchman than Pac-Man, which essentially was a dot gobbling game. There was a lot of Pac-Man clones back in the day. Obviously, once something becomes successful, people start ripping it off like crazy. And, you know, it doesn't take much to create a game where you just gotta gobble dots up. They did it with Lock and Chase, they did it with Mousetrap, they did it with Alien on Atari. And even with the licensed one, yes, the Coleco arcade one. Ooh. I think I have a couple of different Pac-Man things, like a keychain one. I have a couple of handhelds that's just Pac-Man. Oh, it's unconventional, only with the name Ben. Ah, okay. Unconventional. Okay. I could never figure that out, because I think it's the way you got the capital on the U and then the capital on the B. I thought it was two different words for some reason. Pac-Man mug. Yeah, I got a bunch of Pac-Man mugs. Limestone butter. How's it going? Interesting name there. Let's see what's going on here. There we go. I'm trying to remember how to get into gear there. Whoa! Oh yeah, this is the one where you just gotta push down or up to get into gear, but you don't actually push any button to accelerate. Oh. It's been a while since I actually played pole position on Atari. It's not too bad, actually. I found that when I was playing all different kinds of pole positions that, you know, a lot of them do play very similar. It's just the graphics that change. And I noticed too was when I did my comparison video, when I did pole position on the Atari versus the, what did I do, the pole position 2 on the 7800 and on the Commodore 64. There were slight differences in, you know, one was push down for changing gear, the other one was push up, and I mean, other than that, there wasn't much difference to playing the game. I think one of them, maybe it was the Commodore one, you had to actually hold down the fire button to accelerate. So this one you don't really need the fire button. I think the fire button's brake. Yeah. So other than that, yeah. Yeah, there is pole position for the Intellivision. I actually don't have that one. I didn't even know it existed for the longest time. It's quite surprising how many Intellivision games I didn't know existed. Like I just didn't think they actually came out with them. Even Pac-Man. I have Pac-Man on the Intellivision, and I found it in the store like 3 years ago, and I didn't even know it existed. Find pole position better than Enduro. Enduro is very similar, but you have the different seasons when you're playing Enduro. This one's just a straight-on IndyCar racing. It's cool in the arcades though, because it actually had a steering wheel. Whoa. Oh. I don't think I did too well on that. It's rare. It's like a homebrew. I always thought that Casey Munchkin looked cool, but never had the system to play it on. Yeah, Casey Munchkin, I believe, started on the, what was it, on the Odyssey? The Odyssey 2? I think that's where that came out. Maybe a bunch of other ones. Pole Position definitely is up there with one of the classic titles. Even had a cartoon at one point. I don't remember it, but I have seen clips of it. I think it was very brief. Actually, a lot of the classic arcade games had cartoons at one point. Gonna play some homebrews. I think the only homebrew... Oh, I have two homebrews, I think. One is Princess Rescue. And I think what's the other one? Crap. Forgot the name of it. My problem with these racing games is I never apply the brake. I think that's what gets me into problems all the time. Is I don't get into using the brake when I should be. I just try to race through it. Yeah, pole position 2 on the 7800. Well, it came with it actually. That's one of the great ports. I actually remember when my friend first got pole position, or sorry, got the Atari 7800 and it came with pole position. We played it a lot. Let's see here. Yeah, Street Racer. That's exactly it. Let's see. Yeah, this is the one I have that's a homebrew. This was the attempt at making a Super Mario Brothers game. I usually can't get too far in this one. I don't know. I have a hard time on it. I don't know if it's just the scale of it or something, or... Definitely homebrews is something that I have been considering, you know, not just on the Atari, but on the Intellivision as well. A lot of great homebrews on the Intellivision. You know, games like D2K, or even, well, Donkey Kong Arcade, D2 Arcade, which I have played a few times on my channel, on the emulator, but I don't actually have the physical cartridge. The programmer for DK Arcade, he sent me the ROM to review it, kind of do a, you know, my thoughts on it and try it out. So I can only play it on the computer, but I can't play it on my original Intellivision until I can afford to get one, the actual cartridge, but they're not cheap. I mean, the thing about homebrews is that because they're, you know, they have to make them, they also have to charge quite a bit of money for them, and rightfully so. I mean, they're not mass-produced, and I'm running out of time here. Trying to find something. So, you know, to get the DK Arcade on Intellivision, it's about $50–$60, and for me to ship it down here, it'd be probably about $70. That's a lot. And D2 Arcade, or D2K is even more. It's like $100. And you know, I don't know how long they're gonna last, and eventually they're gonna become scarce. Actually, Arcade USA, if you watch Willie, Arcade USA, he just did a video on Intellivision Donkey Kong, and he shows D2, he actually has a D2K game still in the shrink wrap, which is cool. He's debating on whether he should open it, though. Now here's another interesting fact about, about the, like this game. This is an Atari 2600 game, and it requires 2 buttons. And we all know that the Atari only was sold with a joystick with 1 button. However, the Atari did have the capability of having about, I don't know, 16 or more buttons. And, you know, that there was, like, you know, the Star Raiders number pad and all that stuff. It's just for whatever reason they decided that the joystick would only have 1 fire button. So almost the majority of games that you'd play on the Atari would have 1 button. Whereas this, they took advantage of that and of the abilities of having more buttons. And so when Mario goes to fire his fireballs, like when he gets the flower, you actually need the 2nd button. Which I think you can replicate, or you can do it with the single controller by pushing down and fire or something, but on this, for my gamepad, I actually use the secondary button. So I have, you know, I have a ton of buttons on this thing, but to actually shoot a fireball, I have to push the 2nd button. Oh, whoops, if I can get the plant again. Yeah, this was actually sold through Atari Age. It's called Princess Rescue. Actually had a box, it had a manual, it had everything. It was sold officially as a homebrew. And then apparently the story goes that Nintendo shut it down. So whether that actually happened or not, I don't know the full story. I haven't actually seen anything concrete that proves that. But that's the rumor that I've heard, was Nintendo shut it down. Now, Nintendo has always been, you know, pretty strong with its IP. Especially even just like people like me who stream video games. If you stream something like Super Mario Brothers, you would get a copyright claim. And apparently, the news just broke about a week or two ago that Nintendo is getting rid of that copyright thing. So, I don't know. I'm gonna see what happens, because I've streamed a few. I've streamed Super Mario Brothers 3, and I've streamed Super Mario Brothers, well, all of them, and most of the time I get a copyright claim. So after, I think, December, they're supposedly removing their, whatever it was, the program that they have, the creators program that they created, that officially allowed you to stream their games. And all it meant was they would get a cut of your, you know, whatever you made off that stream, they would get a cut of it. It really didn't matter for people like me who can't make any money off of my streams, because I don't have 1,000 subscribers right now. So it really didn't matter anyways, because I can't make any money. If anybody knows, you know, the whole thing about YouTube is, if you want to make any money off of YouTube, you need at least 1,000 subscribers. And, is it like 4,000 hours watch time or something like that. Whereas before, it used to be anybody could make money regardless of subscribers. So this came into effect about a year and a half ago, somewhere around there. And yeah, so it didn't really matter to me anyways. Everybody's streaming Super Smash Brothers right now, and no one is complaining about getting in trouble. Yeah, it's not all Nintendo games. It's certain Nintendo games that, you know, the popular ones, like The Legend of Zelda. You know, the original Legend of Zelda, the original Super Mario Brothers. The ones that are more iconic. Those are the ones that they really put the copyright claims on. Oops. They don't have, like, you can play a lot of Nintendo games and not get a copyright claim. It's just a really, really, you know, things like Super Mario Brothers is where the IP thing came in. Whoa. The responsiveness of this game is horrible. I'm kind of surprised that Atari didn't put out a new controller later on that had a second button on it like Sega did, and the 6th button. Well, if you think about the Atari 7800 in Europe, actually came with the 2 buttons. It actually, even our Atari 7800 came with 2 buttons on it. It's just, it wasn't a gamepad style. It was kind of weird. But yeah, you can get the Atari 7800 gamepad. I think Jim from Jim's Retro Zone has one. And it looks like a Nintendo controller almost. Although it's not an actual D-pad, a traditional D-pad. I believe it has a little bit of a rise to it, almost like a thumb pad. A little bit different, but very similar. This is a great game, though. I mean, it's too bad they couldn't keep selling it. can you use the second button on the 7800 controller on the 2600? It's a good question. I usually don't use the 7800 controller unless I'm playing on my 7800. Not a big fan of it. The one that we got here in North America anyways. Kind of looks like the Atari 5200 controller, but it doesn't have a keypad. It's a little bit smaller. I don't find it very comfortable at all. I think I ran out of time there. Yeah, that's worth 250 to 350 in a box. Yeah, for sure. That's what happens. The quantities became scarce. Now, if you want this game, it's going to cost you. If you can even find it complete in box. And another thing about this one, if you have the Atari Flashback portable and try and load this game on, it only works partially. The fireballs don't work. You can't shoot fireballs. Okay, I might have been wrong on the fireball thing. I think it is still up and shoot. So perhaps... yeah. But with the flashback thing, you cannot shoot the fireballs. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. It's a glitch or something, or just the emulation, or maybe it's the emulator they use. It's a different version of Stella. But yeah, I was wrong about that. I thought it was the other button, but it's actually, you push up, so it's like if you play Castlevania, and if you want to use the special weapon. Ouch. That's another thing. In the this thing that's going up and down, if you put this on the Flashback portable, it doesn't move. It stays stationary right away. So you can tell there's a few defects. I think it's just the version of Stella that they use, the emulator. What about the newer Flashback portable? Not sure. I heard it wasn't that much different. There was a few games that do work on it that didn't work on the original Flashback. So maybe if I get my hands on the new one, which I might have to because I can't find mine right now. Let's see here. Yeah, I'd probably end up picking one up. I see them all the time, every time I'm at Walmart and stuff, and I don't know if there's going to be a third one. That would be interesting to know. The AFP emu is not even Stella. Oh, that's interesting. What the heck is it? Here's the other homebrew I have. Blinky Goes Up. I learned about this from the immortal John Hancock. He did a video on it a long time ago. It's another game that I could not get to work on the Flashback. I don't know why, but I just could not get it. At Games is looking at changing it next Christmas. Huh. Wonder what they're going to do to it. I mean, now that the Flashback 9 apparently has capabilities of using an SD card, I haven't seen a Flashback 9, but I've seen some videos on it, and apparently it can use the SD card to load ROMs onto it. And if that's the case, I mean, the good thing about the Flashback portable, obviously, is the fact that it's portable. But the thing I always liked about it was the fact that I could load ROMs onto it, which you could not do with the previous Flashbacks. Like I have a Flashback 8, And whatever games are on it, that's the only games that are on it. Just like the flashback, oh geez, Coleco. Next year might be Stella MU built in. That's interesting. I wonder what they're using then to emulate if it's not Stella. I know the other game that a lot of people talked about was the fact that it can't run Pitfall 2, the original one. I always thought that this game would be great if this guy had a little bit of a weapon of some sort. I always thought it would be very similar to like a Castlevania style game. You know, the way it progresses upwards. This guy had a little bit of a whip. Always kind of makes me think of Castlevania when I'm playing it. You just gotta get these little dots and keep working your way up. And much like in Castlevania, if you fall off the screen, you die. So once the ground disappears from the bottom, if you fall, you die. Speaking of Castlevania, I've been seeing a bunch of posts on, I think it was the Intellivision homebrews, possibly even the Intellivision Invasion page on Facebook, that somebody is working on a Castlevania port for the Intellivision, which is starting to look amazing. I just don't know if it's going to require any like add-ons or anything to expand the RAM or anything, but it's looking pretty cool. Sometimes people make homebrews that you know, could not fit on a potentially fit on a cart because it requires too much RAM. It might require some kind of extension or add-on or something to the system. See if I can go into this thing. You just gotta be careful when you're jumping, because if you fall, that's it. Like that. Another game that's like this is Kid Icarus on Nintendo. Same thing. When you go up above the ground, once you fall to the bottom there, you did. Kid Icarus is hard. Just gonna keep climbing high. Not sure what the dots are doing. I've never actually seen a manual for this game, so I don't really know what the heck is going on. Oh, I just fell right off the screen. Oh. Nikki goes up. Of course, this game does progress. Starts off fairly easy, and then it gets harder and harder. Pretty sure they're still selling this one on Atari Age. I think it's about 25 or something. 25 bucks. Plus shipping and handling. Just gotta be careful. Oh. Dang. Ah. The timing is off. trying to get Space Game. That looks cool. Which one's Space Game? I know there's one that's like Zaxxon. I don't think that's the one you're talking about though. One thing that a lot of the brewers have done is they've taken a lot of the classic ones and made them better. Dots equal nuggets. Chicken nuggets? Gold nuggets? Oh, collect 4 nuggets for an extra life. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They actually serve a purpose. I help beta test Space Game. I bought the Bosconian homebrew for 2600. It's called Draconian and has voice samples. Pretty impressive. No idea how they pulled it off. What you have to remember too is that the programmers today have a lot more knowledge, a lot more time, and they have better editing capabilities. They have software that can help them design games, stuff that they didn't have back then. So I mean, there's like, you can make games in Atari Basic, which is like a basic software editing system to actually program games that they didn't have that capability back in the day where they had to hard code everything. I would never buy a homebrew that was not on an original game. Oh, I just got killed. My dude, you were streaming piracy. Yeah, I guess I am. Ah, man. This game, you can't really go fast on it because you will fall. Space Raid. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, Space Raid is pretty much Zaxxon. And if you played Zaxxon on the original Atari 2600, it's nothing like the original. Whoa. And the Intellivision version was very much the same as the Atari one, which I was quite surprised with. Coleco was the only one that actually sort of got it right. Oh. Alright, let's see what else we got there. Berserk. Bobby is going home. Bowling. Bowling's interesting on the Atari. You can actually control the ball with the controller, which is different. Stay Frosty. Don't know what that is. Mappy. I heard Mappy was a homebrew. I don't know if is it done now? Did they actually release that? I remember seeing some kind of footage of it. I know I'm in the minority, but I think the original 2600 port of Zaxxon is not that bad of a game. Actually, well, you know, come to think of it, it's not too bad. Let's just try it out again. It's just not. I think the problem is it's just at a straight-on angle, and it is hard to tell where you are. A little bit harder than the actual original Zaxxon. Do this. And it's not like they couldn't do it, because they were able to do it with Desert Fault and put it on that kind of, like, I don't know, diagonal angle, whatever you call that. I was quite surprised that the Intellivision version wasn't any different. I thought it would be better than this one, but the Intellivision one almost mapped this one pretty close. Although they were both made by Coleco, so... yeah, this one's a little bit different. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not like it's a bad game or anything. It's actually pretty good. It's just, if you compare it to the actual Zaxxon, it's a lot different. Whoa. See, I find it's a little bit tricky to know where you are. Oh yeah, Jim's Retro Zone is the former world record holder on this game. Yeah, I don't even think I could even come close to that. I'm not that good at it at all. What? That is the wall. Ah. See, that's the thing. I never know when to hit the dang wall. I don't know if this has that thing where if you stay at the top, Zaxxon will shoot missiles at you. I know it does in the other, the Coleco one anyways. And the Commodore 64 one too. Possibly the arcade, I don't know. But if you stay at the top, then missiles come flying at you. Just so you don't just coast through the game like this. You actually have to go down and shoot some stuff. I find that the space one in this one is not as difficult. I'm playing this on the Coleco is a little bit more challenging. Hopefully I can figure out what to do with my ColecoVision so I can get that running again. I mean, it does work. My Coleco does work. The control port is kind of messed up on the first controller. So the fire button doesn't work when I plug in a controller unless I bend the, like once it's plugged in, the controller's plugged in. If I bend the contact where it's plugged in, if I don't do that, then the fire button doesn't work. I think it's just because, you know, plugging in the old, you know, unplugging the original controllers that have probably been plugged into the system for more than 20 years. And then I plugged in a different controller, and then I plugged the original one back in. I think I just loosened the contacts or something. I don't know what I did. But after that, I've been having that problem. Oh, don't shoot. There we go. Hey, we got Green Lantern just joined the chat. Dang it. Yeah, he has a habit of being late. Fashionably late. Hey, we got Billy O too. My crown just fell out. What? Sorry, I'm trying to read the chat, but unfortunately my the screen, the game screen, covers a bit of the chat, so I can only read like a portion of it. I'm kind of reading half of the chat. See what it says there? My crown just fell out of my tooth, so annoying. Wow, that's gotta suck. A bit sick. Oh, Mr. Toon, you sick? Still? Who was sick? Somebody was sick the other day. Was it Green Lantern, or last week someone was sick? Yeah, there is some nasty things going around there. Bird zapper. Let's see, what's a good one? Crown falling off the tooth sounds expensive. Yeah, especially if you don't have a dental plan. Hopefully you can still eat, depending on where I guess that crown is. Defender. Yeah, so it was Green Lantern. I remember, yeah. Brian, my dude, playing stolen ROMs and drinking whiskey. Well, they are stolen, but I do own the game, so technically, yeah, they're not stolen. Ha! As you know, I have a very huge Atari collection. Defender. Let's play some Defender. I like how this game, there's several games that are similar to this. Chopper Command is one of them, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, sorry, not Raiders of the Lost Ark. The other one, the Star Wars game. I don't know why I said Raiders of the Lost Ark. Empire Strikes Back. That's it. The other George Lucas film. Plays very similar to this. I don't know, I'm just not that good at these ones. That one-up arcade is amazing. Oh yeah, I've been hearing a lot about that. They sell those at Walmart. It's like a full-on arcade system. I believe those are just emulation devices, aren't they? I don't know. They use MAME, maybe? Yeah, I've heard that they do not handle wear and tear very well. I think they're just better if you just kind of set them up and just don't play them very often. I think they have games like Pac-Man, Rampage. What else do they got? I haven't actually seen one. I haven't been in a Walmart in a little while, but I think they're selling them here in Canada. I know I've had one Canadian friend say he's seen them. A little bit too rich for my blood, though. They're usually around, well over $100. I like how they give you the option to see the map up above in this game, but I don't know if it's that useful. They're like $300. That's insane. They don't handle wear and tear, and the buttons are awful. Yeah, probably. I mean, it's just like any of the other emulation devices that they put out there. Usually the hardware isn't really good. They just kind of slap it all together, give it some plastic controls, and away you go. Walmart has them on sale for $150. That's still a lot. I mean, I'm sure they just look cool. Even if you just get it to put it in your man cave or put it somewhere where it just looks cool. I doubt people are going to play it a lot anyways. I mean, it's not going to be like, you know, something like in an arcade where people are going to be like constantly playing on the thing non-stop all day long. I'm sure the ones in display in the Walmart and stuff, you know, people are going in there and trying them out and stuff, and the wear and tear is happening there. Oh, hey, we got Gamester Poet there as well. How's it going, man? I didn't see you come in. Ghostbusters. $99 Canadian, that is. I haven't seen them yet, but I'm pretty sure that they'd be pretty expensive if I did see it. I don't have that many quarters. Yeah, you do need a lot of quarters. kind of wish we had a classic arcade where I live. You know, I see them in the States, like a lot of people on YouTube and stuff go and visit these arcades in the States. Even Jim, at Jim's Retro Zone, he did a video where he went to this store to the shops at regularly, and they had a lot of classic arcades, like Donkey Kong and stuff. I just don't see those around here. Closest I've ever seen is there's the Miss Pac-Man Galaxian, I think it is, or Galaga. 2-in-1 arcade. That's about it. We don't see, I don't see things like Pac-Man, or Miss Pac-Man, or Donkey Kong, or Q*bert, or any of the traditional old-style, old-school arcades. Just see the new stuff, which most of them aren't actual games. When you go into a lot of the arcades around here, they're just, you know, stuff that spits out tickets. Whoa! Right into the lava. Joust is a game that surprisingly controls quite well on the Atari 2600. In fact, it's one of my favorite games on the system. Just because it was done so well. I mean, I don't know if they could do this game any better than the way they've done it. Whoa. I mean, yeah, the 7800 version has a slightly different version of this game, port of this game. A little bit prettier, but this game was done surprisingly well. Oh. One place I've yet to check out, actually, in my area is Dave & Buster's, which is like a more of a Chuck E. Cheese style place for adults, I guess. I guess it's for kids and adults. It's not just for kids, but I know there is one, and I've yet to go there. Oh. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people, like, I've known that actually gone to Dave & Buster's, and they say it's a great place. So far I've just never gone to one. I don't know why. I got two not too far from me. But I don't know if they would have, like, classic arcades, or if they'd have all the new modern stuff. I have no idea. Here comes the egg. This was probably one of the games I played a lot of when I first bought my Atari. When I got my Atari Junior, my friend got me this for my birthday. And before playing it on the Atari, I only had the experience of playing it on the Commodore 64, which, you know, is a little bit different than this one. Yeah, I can see that Dave and Buster's probably would be a lot more new. It's probably why I haven't been too eager to want to go there, because I'm expecting it to just be a lot of the modern games. I don't know, every time I go into Chuck E. Cheese, you know, well, I haven't been there in a little while, but, you know, my daughter had her birthday there a few times, and her friends have had birthdays there, and every time I'm in there, I look at it, I'm like, this is totally different than what I remember. You know, when I was looking around, I'm like, where are the arcade games? Like, there are none. There's, like, Guitar Hero, or there's, like, a few games where you have to shoot things, but with an actual physical gun. But most of the games, or whatever they have there, are, you know, just how do you say it? Luck-based. You put a coin in, push a button, you hope you win. There's no strategy, there's no skill, there's no nothing. It's just put a coin in, hope you win. It's like a casino. It's a casino for kids. Trying to get all them, you know, lucky tickets so you can buy some crappy thing at the gift shop. Or whatever they call that little counter where you can get a oversized comb or some kind of crappy toy. Let's play the other game that I played a lot of when I had my first Atari Junior, which I still have actually. I don't use it anymore because I have an Atari Light 6er that I use now, which is pretty much the same system. But I played this game a lot. Oh! Death. Ouch. I know lots of people when they play this game they don't even try to kill the alligator things. They just try and swim under or around them. That's where the points come from. Jim's Retro Zone's like, ugh, Jungle Hunt. I don't know if that means you don't like it or if you find that it's too hard. The lower you are, the more points you get if you kill those things. Whether they're alligators or crocodiles, I don't remember. Oh. Yeah, I just lost. But you have to stay near the top. It's another game that I first got my experience playing on the Commodore 64. We've talked about this game to death. Oh yeah. Mr. Toon says he misses the 80s a lot. Yeah, so do I. That's why it's good to live retro. Still remember the 80s. Actually, a lot of people I talk with on, you know, in Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, people in my age bracket anyways, still love the 80s, still talk about the 80s, still collect a lot of stuff from the 80s. People like Retro Now, or the Retro Nostalgic Nerd, same guy. who buys a ton of Transformer toys. Does tons of videos on Transformers. If you really like Transformers, you should be checking out the Retro Nostalgic Nerd. There's a channel called Retro Now. He also does like things like Voltron and the occasional video game stuff like Nintendo and Super Nintendo as well. Cool guy. I've talked with him quite a bit. Wonder what would have happened if the Atari crash never happened. It's a good question. The crash of I don't know if much would have changed if the crash didn't happen. I think Nintendo still would have come in. I think things still would have gone on because, you know, the crash only happened in North America. It didn't happen in Europe or Japan or anywhere else. It only happened in America, so North America, Canada, America. So places like South America, Europe, Japan and all that, you know, Asia, the crash never happened to them. And, you know, they still played games, they still played the computers, and the Nintendo came out. Transformers, Voltron, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, GoBots. I don't think he's done G.I. Joe yet. No, I don't think I've seen the Retro Nostalgic Nerd playing anything G.I. Joe. I didn't know he did GoBots, though. I don't think I've seen him doing GoBots. Okay, so that story that the crash didn't affect Europe is bull. Oh, I didn't say it didn't affect it. I said it didn't happen in Europe. The crash was North American. Everybody knows that. You can go and talk to the European gamers out there. They'll tell you the crash never existed in Europe. The crash was North American. However, North America is a big influence. So, you know, what happens in North America could affect other parts of the world. So, yes, the North American crash did affect it, but not to the extreme. A lot of Europeans still went on with their gaming, and it didn't affect them at all in that regard. Not like us. Hey, RC in the NYC. There's a ripple effect. You're listening to Top Hat Gaming Man way too much. The crash did affect Europe. Yes, it affected them, but not as much as it affected us. And it's not just Top Hat Gaming Man. I also talked to people in South America, and they didn't have any issues during that time. I mean, yes, Top Hat Gaming Man is a British YouTuber who does talk a lot about games. Well, he used to, anyways. But he's not the only one I talked to. I talked to a lot of YouTubers all over the world. Australia, they didn't have it. Back in the day, though, many of us, including me, thought the computer would end the console. Why have a console when a computer will play the same games? Better. I felt this way with my Commodore 64. You know, that's actually true. Gamester Poet. I thought that too, but I had a Commodore 64 back when I had my Intellivision, and I still liked playing on my Intellivision, and I eventually got the Atari and the Nintendo, and I still liked playing on them. So even though I had a computer, I never thought that this was going to replace it. Plus, I like the simplicity of just plugging in the system and just plopping in a game and just playing right away. Yes, Brian from Sin Spacies. Exactly, Mr. Toon. You talk to him, he will talk to you. He'll say that, you know, the video game crash never happened. And he lived through it. I mean, he lived through that time frame. Problem is, the big businesses, the big corporations in North America try to really, you know, exploit the whole video game market. And that's when all things kind of went to hell. Well, South America had a lot of Atari clones, though. They didn't have an official Atari, but they had a lot of clones. Clone systems that existed. I know, because there's a guy in Atari Age who collects a lot of them. A lot of the South American Atari clones that came out. I was 10 years old in '83. I wasn't aware of the crash at the time. I just remember seeing a lot of Atari games. Yeah, I mean, I was the same. You know, around the time '83, I was pretty young. The crash, I didn't even know it was even happening. To me, I was just playing video games. I didn't even care. I mean, the crash only affected certain people. And a lot of people who just kind of benefited from it because they're like, hey, all these video games are really cheap. So it's, yeah, it didn't affect everybody. I mean, I was still playing my Intellivision, my Commodore 64, and you know, I didn't even notice there was even a crash. And then all those, you know, once the Nintendo came out, it just felt like nothing ever changed, nothing ever happened. There was a lot of those Tiger Electronic games that came out. And, you know, at one point it did start to feel like there was oversaturation, but '83, I was 2 years old. Yeah, I mean, unless you were an adult during the crash, you probably wouldn't have known any different. You would have seen that. You would have known it then because you would probably be paying more attention to it, probably buying magazines, probably in the business of selling them. Like, but to a lot of kids, you didn't know what the heck was going on. And if you played on computers like Commodore 64, most of the games you were playing were pirated anyways. You were just getting diskettes from friends and copying things. And, like, I don't know anybody, I didn't know anybody back in the day who actually only played with official Commodore 64 games. Everything was, like, pirated. It was, like, common practice back then. Piracy before piracy was cool. No. This is actually a well-done port of the game. I mean, the graphics are kind of iffy, but I mean, you can make out Mario. And I know there is some tricks to this game that people know that they can get like pretty much unlimited score. I don't really play too much for points anyways, so it never really bothered me, but whoa. The amazing thing about the crash is that the 2600 survived. It was still being sold up until '92. Yeah, well, that's when I bought mine. When the Atari 2600 came out, even though the Nintendo was in full swing, the Atari 2600 was then being sold on the shelves, and that's when I bought mine. Or got mine, and you know, I remember the campaigns, the ad campaigns and stuff, where they were like saying, you know, you can buy a Nintendo for, you know, what, $150 or whatever it was going for at the time, and then the games were like $60, $70, or you can buy a Atari for $40, and the games were like 15 to 20. So they were really targeting the people who were like on a budget, the budget gamers. Yeah, because I got my Atari 2600 Junior, and I got Midnight Magic and Keystone Capers with it. I believe Keystone Capers was the game that I really wanted, so kind of what made me want to get the Atari in the first place. Yeah, Atari had the under 50 campaign. I don't quite remember. It was, you know, 91, 92. Oh, geez. Geez, what's with the autocorrect? Yes, autocorrect. Very fun. Oh, I didn't know that Keystone Keepers was on the ColecoVision. I knew it was on the Atari 5200, but it's pretty much the same game with just updated graphics, from what I understand. I know Hero was ported to the Coleco, which I don't know how anybody can play on that controller, because Hero is a tough game, like I was saying on the first game that I played on this stream, so playing that on a Coleco controller would just be insane. Anyways, I think it's time for me to pack it in. I've been playing now for I don't know how long. When did I start this? Whew. Like an hour and a half ago. I bought Kangaroo, the Sword Quest games. Oh, a lot of great ones. Yeah, I like Kangaroo. Kangaroo is fun. It's hard, though. I always had a hard time with Kangaroo. Anyways, thanks everybody for stopping in. It's been a lot of fun. And, you know, I'd like to do another Atari stream again. But I got a bunch of other games to do as well. I tried and, you know, change it up a bit. I got a few more videos coming out this week, like always, including a new segment, which is coming out. I'm going to probably put it out on Tuesday. It's called Toys I Remember. It's kind of a different take on my normal toy thing that I do. I do a favorite toys thing where I talk about toys that I have already, whereas this is going to be toys I remember from the past that I don't have anymore. So it kind of opens it up to a lot more toys that I just don't have anymore. It's just, you know, I'll kind of explain it in the video. You'll see it. But yeah, check out for that. It's coming out hopefully on Tuesday. And then I got a bunch of other videos coming out. So thanks guys for coming into the chat. It's been awesome talking with all of you. And I hope everybody has a good night. If it's nighttime to you guys anyway.